Hey everyone, you're watching Conversations in Pop Culture, and I am your host, Andrew Davis. And this episode is brought to you by my very own class, which is dropping October 5th, which is a comic book investment system masterclass. It will be on Udemy, Substack, anywhere else where you can get any of your classes. Locals, it's going to be there too. And I'm not going to bore everybody else with the rest of my sponsors because I have with me Max DeVill and Johnnie Reed, the writers on Ninja Bimbos vs. Zombies from Deep Space, issue 2. So welcome to the show.
Yep.
All right, what's up?
How are you?
Yeah, no, I'm excited to have both of you on. Obviously, this is issue 2. Anything that has ninja bimbos, zombies, and space in it, it's right up my alley. And it's a fun book. And obviously, you guys were on for Human Hunters a while back. But people may or may not know what Ninja Bimbos vs. Zombies from Deep Space is. So what is the basic premise for those who are hearing about it for the first time?
Well, the name is, I know, kind of is a mysterious type name. You can't really.
It's very confusing.
Yeah, I know. We did that on purpose.
Yeah, it's a very what you see is what you get type of comic book. The name spells it out directly for everybody, and it's a B movie in a comic book is what it is. And it's fun time. It's got some silly jokes and it's got some real campy stuff to it, but it's also got some hardcore gore and sexy women. So it all works out great. Sometimes sexy women that are covered in hardcore gore.
That is true. It's kind of our ode to like Trauma and all those films, you grow up on late Friday nights watching, and you're like,
Rhonda Shear, up all night.
All night. Oh, and good old Godfrey.
Yeah. Oh God, Gilbert Godfrey.
So let's even talk about this, because this is the thing that I think is somewhat lacking in comics, is that people don't do B movies. And I remember in college, I used to love watching B movies. You get hammered. Friday night, you chill out, and you're not looking for the B movie to be, winning an Oscar, but you're looking for it to have a good time. And I feel like that's something that's lacking in comics, because everybody's trying to write the next, Sandman, or they're trying to write the next Umbrella Chronicles, or whatever else it is, or Academy. And
they want to write whatever's going to get them on Netflix.
Yeah, because what is this like? Because to me, when I pick up a comic book, my life is chaotic, my life is stressful, and I want to relax. So what is this like to sort of deliver that? Because I think a bunch of people want that, and I think that's what the two of you hit really well.
Well, it's pretty fun, actually, because me and Johnnie sit down together and we write. And when we write, we finish each other's sentences and we finish each other's thoughts. And neither one of us want to do anything too heavy. It's just we want to do stuff that's just fun. We want comics to be fun again.
Well, and even in our other, this one, like we say, it's a B movie, and like our other titles, with Human Hunters and Mary Machine Gun, those we have some good jokes. Those are more smart ass, really. But still, even in those books, Atrocity Press, we want you to be able to have an escape. We don't want you to have all that stress and everything in a comic. I love Grant Morrison, but I don't want a encyclopedia next to me to try to read a comic book, I want to just have some fun and escape for a bit. And it's kind of great because, like, for this one, I still, to this day, vividly remember Max calling me up. He goes, dude, I got this idea. And he gives me the name, right? And I just start laughing my ass off. I'm like, wait, you're effing serious? This is what you want to do? And he's like, yeah. And for those that don't know, and those that don't know me, my background, and actually part of the reason I kind of met Max was I was working for a movie company doing horror B movies.
Yep.
So I was doing a lot of these movies that you can go stream now on wherever. But so he's telling me this. I go, so you really want to do this? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, dude, it wasn't that long ago I just filmed a zombie movie. And he's like, no, this is going to be great. And we started it out very campy, very silly, because we thought it was going to be fun. And then the artwork starts rolling in. And Max is like, dude, we got to up this up. He goes, this artwork is too good for this campiness. because it really kind of caught us both by surprise. I know it did me, because the artwork came in and I was like, holy shit, this is awesome.
Yeah, I was expecting. I mean, I was expecting the art to be good, but I was expecting it to be more silly.
Yeah, and it wasn't. I mean, and we're like, okay, so we dove back in. Let's change this. Let's change that. And I mean, and for us, honestly, I mean, I know a lot of writers get a little crazy, but I'm not even joking. It was like 3 hours and we had it rewritten. You know what I mean? And that's just how we work. I mean, usually we knock out a comic book. When we sit down and write it, we can knock out about a 30-page comic, 30 page in about 2 days. When we sit down and knock it out. And this was just so much fun. We sat down and he's like, let's get this rolling. And we started working on the characters and creating these girls and the world. And it flowed really quick.
Yeah, to even talk about that, because one of the things is that obviously I write a lot of interviews, I prep up, and sometimes an interview writes itself. And sometimes the flow is just there. And with a title like this, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's really hard for the flow not to be there when you're having that funny and sort of, I guess, parodying the entire zombie realm to some degree. Because you got sexy girls, you got a zombie apocalypse, they're dealing with that problem. But there's also something serious going on at the same time. Mm-hmm. It's also, a little gore, and it's really paying tribute to the B movies in a lot of ways as well. Mm-hmm. And so what is that like when, the book's just writing itself in a lot of ways? Because I think it's a writer's dream per se.
It's good. It's when it writes itself, and we kind of just sit there and we go along with each other, and everyone's finishing each other's sentences, and the book's just kind of going as it goes. It's great. The only problem is that it just you don't make it too long.
Yeah, we could write these books for 100 pages long. Max has always got to be like, dude, it's a comic, not a novel, because I get excited and I want to get going with it. And kind of like what you said, writing yourself, I can tell you the thing that really, I don't know about you, Max, but for me is once we establish the character, the personalities of these girls, mm-hmm. That's when it just really started flowing, because we sat down and we're like, Leah's going to be our basically typical blonde bimbo. Yep. Donna's going to be, Donna's I'm going through medical school and I can pay it off by stripping, because you have that, you have those girls that are book smart, but they know where the money is.
Yep.
And then once we establish the dynamics of these girls, to this day, we could probably sit down right now and probably do about a couple chapters like it's nothing, because there's just so much to tell and so much to write.
Yeah, to even dive into that a little bit, because that's one of the things that I also feel, just in my opinion, is somewhat lacking in comics, is that a lot of people, I feel, don't have a good idea who their characters are until issues 2 and possibly even issues 3. And I think that's something that is a big issue, where if you come out with a first issue, because I've experienced this with about 5 books this year on the indie scene, where they haven't really developed their characters. Mm-hmm. And I get the character is a bitch, but I don't know anything beyond that. And I feel like we have a pretty good idea who these 5 girls are, maybe 4. Spoiler alert! Sorry, everybody.
The first one's out.
First book's been out for a while.
One of them had to go. I'm just
right.
Sorry. It's like Herschel from The Walking Dead.
Granted,
she had to go. It was just the way it was going to work. But what is that like to really have that as a Bible and have these characters well established and going into it? Because I think that's sort of the secret to me of really producing a good book right now.
Well, that's one of the things that me and Johnnie do when we're making up the characters, is we create character sheets, like D&D character sheets for these characters. And that way we kind of know, okay, this girl's faster than the other girls, and this girl's stronger than the other girls, this girl's smarter than the other girls. This character's smarter than the other characters. It doesn't matter if it's girls. We just do a lot of female characters in Atrocity Press books.
But even in Human Hunters, we did that a lot. We created all the male characters. And it's actually in D&D sheet. Blue eyes, blonde hair, what kind of scars do they have? What's their background? And we really, we kind of like create these characters before we even start writing them. So when we sit down to write, they're already in our heads rolling.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of times we'll start to type something and we'll be like, yeah, she wouldn't say that. And we'll be like, yeah, you're right. And then, and then I'll say something. And Max is like, dude, would Donna say that? I'll be like, no, you're right. Because we really try to, I hate to say it, put ourselves in, the stripper shoes. So
it's something you definitely don't want to see, but
yeah, but we do. We try to be fair to those characters.
Because it's really interesting, because that's something that's also fascinating, is that this book doesn't shy away from the exotic elements, and you are putting yourselves in those stripper shoes. And obviously, I think everybody's had some experience, whether it's seeing it on film or being in a strip club, and there's elements of that in there, and even getting that right, and even how they're going to act and why they're all there as well. And it also has a sense of bad girl art to it. And the other thing it has going on is sort of a 90s, Top Cow vibe to it as well. And so
Thank you.
I think that's something that it's lacking in comics right now. And Top Cow was really good with Witchblade and a few other things. And this is kind of in that vein, per se. It's not in the vein of Zenoscope, in my opinion. It's more in the vein of Top Cow.
Yeah, it's not a Zenoscope thing, because Zenoscope's more. I don't know. They're most Zenoscope books. Yeah,
great covers.
Zenoscope stuff that I've read has mostly been like the fairy tales books. I read a bunch of those, but that's about most of the Zenoscope stuff that I've read is mostly just the fairy tales, Grimm's fairy tales or whatever. But
yeah, this is more Top Cow for sure.
Yeah,
yeah,
and we wanted it to be that way. I mean, there's some nudity in the book. There's nudity in Zenoscope stuff too, but there's nudity in the book, and we placed the nudity as a storytelling device. It's not just
we don't
just throw them out there for no reason. It's like if there's a reason, there has to be a reason for the nudity. And like they were in the strip club, so there was a couple girls that had their shirts off, but ever since then there hasn't been any nudity in the book because all the girls are in their underpants.
Well, and it makes sense. They're running for their lives. There's not time to change.
Exactly.
There's not time to all of a sudden, here's my superhero costume. And I think that's kind of the thing is when we sit down and write a book, a lot of it is we want it. It's a comic, yes, but we also want it to be real. We don't want people to be sitting there reading it and going, well, that doesn't make sense. Or
it has to follow logically. It has to logically follow. That's the most important thing. Yep. And we try not to make our villains stupid.
Yeah, that ticks me off. No monologuing. If you need a villain to monologue what you're trying to write, maybe you need to write a little bit more dialogue.
Yep.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think that's a big problem right now. And I don't know if anybody saw Thor: Love and Thunder, but
oh my God, that movie was so bad.
Yes,
it
was rough.
Even my 7-year-old was like, I don't like this movie.
But the villain in many ways was almost monologuing the entire thing, and it was a disaster.
It's like a Get Smart.
It's
like the old Get Smart TV shows. You don't know what's going on until the villain, shows up, and I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do.
Because I think it's a real problem in comics right now is that it's like, I want to see a villain actually shoot somebody and then be like, I shot you. Because to me, that's what it is. Like, I don't need you to tell me what you're going to do or what you did. I need you to do it.
Yeah.
But and it's also the idea that I think the average reader is smart enough now to realize that if a villain wants to, shoot Batman, and we're just going to use Batman as an example, he's going to fire the gun at Batman. Like, I don't need you to tell me I'm going to go kidnap Batman and shoot him. Like, it's kind of preaching and telling your audience that they're stupid, which I don't think people on Kickstarter and people in general, I don't think are that stupid. I could be wrong. And if I am, well, I guess, I'm in that club now, but that's not the point.
No, you have to respect your audience when you're writing, for sure. I mean, I don't think that anybody that reads our stuff is stupid. I mean, they can't be, because they got to read.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of it with the audiences nowadays, it was different in the 80s and 90s, because a lot of times you were kind of selling to a certain demographic. But nowadays, when your most popular shows are like Game of Thrones, or like The Boys, or like, Stranger Things, our culture has changed now, where everybody knows it's more common knowledge what a Demon Gordon is. I was back in the 80s, well, not say 80s, 90s, I was in a band called Mind Flare. And nobody knew what Mind Flare was. We're like, it's the most chaotic evil, character in the D&D books. Nowadays, you say Mind Flares, and half the people know it from Stranger Things.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, so when you're writing a comic book now, you don't have to do as much dialoguing, so that's nice, number one. But number two, the audience is smarter. They are, kids are watching these shows at a younger age. When you can just turn on Netflix and watch, Umbrella Academy, all these shows. You got to write to actually appeal to that masses, because that's your audience.
Yeah, and also I think it's the idea that nerd culture is now cooler. Like when I grew up, and I'm 29, it wasn't that I was going to get shoved into a locker, but kids weren't watching Gundam, they weren't watching Dragon Ball Z, they weren't playing D&D. But now all those kids are doing it, and it's cool. And then you have professional athletes who are really into this too. And now if you're not doing that stuff, you're sort of on the outs a little bit. And so I think that's the other thing too that's changed in our culture, at least from what I've seen. And maybe,
No, you're definitely dead on. There's a lot. Like nerd culture has become
culture.
Much, it's become culture.
It's become culture.
When I was growing up, it's like, oh, you're a computer nerd, you're a dork, you're a nerd, you're a dork, you're a jackass, you're just a computer nerd. So no one paid any attention to you. It's like, oh, you play video games? What you're like a child, you're like a baby. Video games are for children. And now all those same people are playing video games all day long.
Yeah.
It's just funny. It's kind of like I was always like a little bit ahead of the curve. When I was in middle school, I was smoking pot, and everyone called me a pothead. And then by the time I got to high school, everyone's like, hey, man, can you hook me up? And I'm like, no, cop, I cannot.
It's kind of funny how that all goes around, and it's similar to me now, where everybody's like, yo, you got Pokemon cards this on? I'm like, not really, because I got all my old stuff and I don't want to share anymore. It's like,
you gotta keep your stuff.
I'm sorry that I have the Charizard and you don't. That's your problem. but getting back to this book, because there's a lot going on, and pretty much issue 2 picks right up where issue 1 left off.
Yeah, and right, exactly right where it left off. I mean, full on Halloween 2.
Which is what we planned. We wanted it that way. Because I think a lot of our books are kind of like that, where it kind of flows into the other, because it's kind of a constant, story that we're telling.
And so obviously, just to ruin some stuff, and I kind of stated already,
right?
I think Alexis gets off. I mean, her contract expired and she got written off because she got another gig somewhere else. That's how I explain how people get killed off in comics now. Is that they got a better gig somewhere in the entire.
She'll be playing a nun in a Mary Machine Gun 5 is what's going to happen.
Yep.
You'll see her in a panel.
But she gets killed. Spoiler alert, I'm sorry. You're going to have to deal with that, everybody. And if that doesn't back this book, she looks pretty freaking hot as a zombie, I gotta say. But
yeah, that's what when we wrote it. It was like, she's a zombie, but she's super hot.
Yeah. You actually put that note in there. You had it like in parentheses because kind of like, hey, you know, because I mean, the end result is like, and we're not ashamed of it. You know, a lot of people don't embrace it. They're like, oh, we just like good looking characters. No, it's a bad girl comic. You know, we're going to embrace it. And that's, you know, just to comment on what you were saying a little bit earlier about like Top Cow and how there's not like that out there. I think the thing that, once again, correct me if I'm wrong, Max, that drove you to start this in the first place, because Max started Atrocity Press and he started with Mary Machine Gun, was he wanted a comic that he couldn't buy on the shelves.
That's right.
You know, he couldn't buy it. You know, and for me, you know, when we started talking, he's like, do you have any ideas? I go, yeah, I got all kinds of ideas. And I go, and our ideas are for comics that, one, we can't find because, you know, they're original ideas. And a lot of them is, like you said, they're somewhat like Tom Cow, but I mean, I own a comic shop, and it's like every month I pick up a previews. It's almost like I feel chest falling because there's no Top Cow section anymore. You know, you don't have that Mark Sevenessi, you don't have that Michael Turner, you don't have those titles we used to have, and there's a void, I think, in comics because of it.
Yeah, and look, I mean, it's no secret that I'm a huge Zenescope fan. I have a very good relationship with that company. And I think that they filled a part of that gap with their covers. But again, even their characters in some of their books have filled that void, but it's not enough. I mean, and they don't profess that they're the solution. They're part of it, but there is a huge void that's missing. And I think that's a big problem right now, because I think people want it. And I think people are willing to spend a lot of money for it. I think a lot of money in comics has actually been left on the table. But the problem here that I think that you guys sort of solved to some degree is you're producing a good bad girl comic with what you get. I'm going to get the covers in a second here, but you're getting what's on the cover in the book. And I think that's something that's sort of not happening also in comics right now, is people say, hey, I'm doing a bad girl book, but I'm not delivering.
Yeah, I mean, when we do,
because that's sort of like what I feel that, you know, this book does, and Mary Machine Gun does it, and Human Hunters does that as well, where I know what I'm getting.
Well, we always give the first standard cover to the interior artist. That way, you know exactly what you're getting, because that interior artist is drawing that cover, so it's going to be exactly that type of art on the inside. Now, we do other covers like Mariah's cover, and then, you know, like Fern did a cover for this one. And
we're going to get to it, I promise.
Yeah. Some other people did covers for it, and those are different, but those are variant covers. Those aren't the official cover.
But even what I was going for and what I was getting at is that I feel like you're delivering what a Top Cow book was back in the day.
Thank you for that.
And that's the idea that I think people are like, oh, this is what it looks like, where we're getting girls that, you know, aren't scared to get rough and tough per se, you know, but also there are real consequences, but they're also not, you know, I guess soft is the word. Like, I don't know how to describe it.
I don't want to make. We don't like making weak characters. I mean, all of our characters are badass. Don't get us wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, all the girls, they're super good, and then all the Human Hunters are good. Mary Machine Gun, she's badass.
Charlotte's badass.
Yep, Charlotte's a bad guy.
Hey, I'm just trying to say this and get my point across in the least offensive way possible.
Oh no, and you know what? That's what's sad. You have to do that nowadays. You got to be careful.
Look, I didn't even start my new job yet, everybody. So clearly, I really need to be careful,
right?
Because I'll get fired before I even start. So I really need to be careful.
It's like on Friday. How you get fired on your day off?
Facebook. I put the wrong post out on Facebook.
Said I was stealing some boxes.
Yeah, I really think this is like, and then there's other stuff that's going on with it too, because I mean, obviously they lose, you know, their friend, and she gets turned into a hot zombie, and they don't really have time to, I guess, mourn her death, and I think they somewhat eliminate her per se, and they're not going to get into all that, and then it's the other four. And now they got to deal with a big threat that's coming, which is this zombie apocalypse, and a bunch of zombies are coming their way. And well, I mean, I don't know how far this issue goes into dealing with that thing and the horde that's coming, but they're going to have to fight their way out or fight the entire herd, or something's going to happen.
There's a lot of fighting in this book.
Yeah, especially at the end.
Yep. They're moving. They're trying to make their way across the city to get to one of the girls' apartments so they can have a base of operations, because that's what they think the best thing to do would be. And
I think we even made a comment about they had to get some clothes. Just just to be, just be like, hey, we need to get some clothes and some food.
And
so, a lot of stuff.
So they'll be moving across the city and fighting a ton of zombies on the way, because the whole city's basically converted into zombies.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I think this book is going. And even when you go into issue 3 and issue 4, is that they got to basically deal with this zombie threat and survive and figure out how to. Yeah. I don't know if their goal is to escape the city or survive in the city, or how far you have planned out, or if there's a set number of issues that they're going to be in this entire city.
Just to let you know, this is an ongoing title.
Yes, it's an ongoing series.
We're already written up to issue 5. I think it's a 5 or 6. We've already completed.
Yeah.
Of course, we can write quicker than our artists, because it takes a lot longer for them to do their thing. But I think there are currently on issue 4 artwork wise, and we've got an outline. I want to say up almost to 12.
Yeah, probably
something like. I think it's almost like to 12. We got the basic. We already know our next 2 story arcs.
Yep. So we've got plenty of story to tell with these girls.
Oh yeah,
and it's going to be fun. I mean, we haven't even. This is just the beginning. This is the prelude. It's working their way up. They haven't even become ninja bimbos yet. They're just bimbos.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the best way to state it. Yeah. Right now it's just we should have just done this cover with the ninja crossed out until we got to that issue. But you're right. I mean, that they have all these adventures just getting to where we want to be.
And so, what is that like? Because obviously, people who go on to Kickstarter, and look, I've also had problems on Kickstarter where I've had a bunch of books and a bunch of projects where they've taken the money and they're massively behind schedule.
Nope.
And but you know the question I'm asking.
Yeah. No, I know, but no, that I'm just saying, nope, that's not us. No, Max, he put a really good plan in play.
Yeah, and we're actually like a couple weeks late on Mary Machine Gun 3 because there was some issues with. I got a divorce, so I was a little discombobulated there for a while. But we've got everything squared away. We've got all the surveys are coming back to us now, so we can do the fulfillment tomorrow, right, Johnny?
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of the things set us back was we had some technical issues. Like the one thing about Atrocity Press is quality. We don't just want to throw crap out. And the poker chips came in. I'm just going to be transparent because we're transparent, and they were all stamped crooked, and we're like, we're not sending these out because we're better than that. When some comics come back and something's off, the cards, we're better than that. In this case, we had to wait a little bit longer to get the poker chips. So because we want to put out the best quality. I mean, when you pick up our book, it's got high paper, it's got good art, it's got good ink.
Because in my view, and this is just how I view Kickstarter, where as a consumer, I have a golden opportunity choice where there are at least every single month 40 to 50 good projects. And so, I mean, this is just how I view it, is that I feel like that somebody who's doing a comic project, you got to win me over in story, you got to win me over in art, and stretch goals matter because at this point now, there is a bunch of stories that are all, I don't want to say they're all the same, but they're all the same quality of work. And so you need to really have something that's bigger, and you need to also have something that interests me. So like, I'm a big metal card guy. And so that's what convinces me as a stretch goal is when people have metal cards, or if you have a particular artist, or you have a story that I just think the art is better than the story before it, you know? And so I think that's a big thing. And I think that's what some people don't understand about Kickstarter is that it's an experience and it's also a way to add value. And I think some people understand that and some people don't. And despite Kickstarter, and I feel like a lot of creators who are on their fourth or fifth campaign should understand that, and they don't. And that's just me as a consumer and how I feel.
Well, the one thing I can tell you that I've just with Max and what he really set up is that everything, the minute we launch a Kickstarter, it's done. That book is ready to print as soon as the Kickstarter sends us the fundage. And that's what we pride ourselves in. Like I said, you know, we've already got on issue 4 or 5 of Ninja Bimbos already almost in the bag. And that's like when you say, hey, I want to support Atrocity Press, we're letting you not only is the book done, but the future books are done. You're not going to have to wait for 2 years to get that second issue. Just some insight, you know, Max, I, and our art director sat down, was it like week before last?
Yep,
and we planned out 2023, and except for January, because we know Kickstarter's slow in January, we're putting out a book from Atrocity Press pretty much every month. So, I mean, the machine is now officially rolling. Ninja Bimbos is this month. 1st of October, we are going to be launching Human Hunters issue 2. When you get into
November will be November, maybe Mary Machine Gun 3, or we may wait till February.
4.
Oh, excuse me, 4.
4. Yeah, that's the only one that's kind of like in the zone. But once we get, but we will be having at least 2, if not 3 books this year. And then next year, once we get past January, it's every month. So you don't have to wait around. You know, if you enjoy a book, you can know that it's going to be in about 2-3 more months. We're going to pop out the next issue of it.
Yep.
Because I think that's also a big issue right now with indie comics is, you know, the fact that sometimes it's 6, sometimes it's 8 months between issues. And
sometimes it's a year and a half.
Yeah. And that's where we were with Human Hunters, because Human Hunters from issue 1 or 2 is exactly a year. But there was a lot that happened in between there because just as a company, Max was by himself originally, and then I became part owner of Atrocity Press, and we became partners.
Yep, Johnnie came on board. And we did a project that kind of got shelved, and that kind of slowed us down a lot.
Yeah.
So that kind of
threw us off our schedule a little bit, but now we're rolling again. I mean, now that we got this one going, Mary Machine Gun 3 is going to be mailed out tomorrow. We're going to start mailing them. Human Hunters in October. We're ready to start just flying. And that's what we just want people, you know, that are listening to, you know, to your show to know that we're not slowing down, that we're going.
Oh yeah. 100% full board.
Because I think it's very important, and I think that, you know, when you do have those gaps, you know, they could be good, but they're also bad to some degree because people want to consume content. There's a reason why Netflix releases all of a show in an entire season at once, because people want to consume it.
They want to binge.
And people want stories. And even if it's not the same story, they also say, hey, look, I like this publisher, and I want to be able to buy a lot of their material. And then you get a customer for the first time, you have a library, and they buy all of it, and they're like, hey, look, I read this thing in like 2 weeks. What else you got? And that's one of the biggest problems, I think.
And we've got a tier for that. It's got all the stuff the Atrocity Press has put out, except for Neo Tokyo. The Truth is a Virus. It doesn't have that book, but it has all of our other books that we've put out.
And that's because the other books are our ongoing titles. Neo Tokyo was
just a one shot.
It's a one shot. We're not sure if we're going to revisit it. I'm sure at some point we will, but we just have a lot of properties. I mean, we have certain titles that me and Max are working on that we haven't even like brought to the world yet. So I mean, we're looking at next year. I know we have 2 more titles that we haven't.
2 new ones.
We have 2 ones, and then you just came up with another one this weekend. So now it's like 3. So it's like we got 3 now. So yeah, next year basically Atrocity Press will have for sure 2 titles added in 2023, and then probably that 3rd one for 2024.
Yep.
Yeah, well, what is that like? Because Atrocity Press obviously has a lot of stuff going on, and having and really building out the library. I mean, I had Tom Hutchinson on my show, and what he was explaining is that it's a real game changer when you're at a con and you have a trade paperback, but then not when you only have one trade paperback, but you have 2 or 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
Yep, that's on our schedule.
And so what is that like? And even tabling the trade paperback, even when you have like 6 titles out on your tables, you know, it sort of, I guess the word is clout to some degree, but it also signifies that you're serious. You know, I like to think that when
committed.
I find interviews out there, it's like, oh, you've been doing this a long time, you know, and that's how I view it. And in the same way, to some degree, it's obviously a little bit different, but you know, I'm curious how you guys feel about that.
Well, I wanted, whenever we did, before we did the convention, I was like, okay, let's make sure we've got some product, because I don't want to be Atrocity Press and we're just selling Mary Machine Gun, because that's silly. You don't. There's no reason to be Atrocity Press at that point in time. You're just Mary Machine Gun. So I wanted to get more titles under our belts. And we've got 4 titles technically under our belt. So I think that's good enough for doing a smaller convention. And then by the time we get around to C2E2 for next year, we should have a couple more new ones. And then we should have at a trade paperback, at least 1, maybe 2.
Yep.
And we'll be able to come out swinging. What do they call it? Big dick energy.
And just like that, Andrew lost his job tomorrow.
You know, I didn't even start. Now, like, I get in my future, like.
But no, but that is kind of our plan. That's the one thing it's one of those that we're excited about what we're doing, but we're also trying to plan what we're doing. We don't want to get that cart before the horse, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know, we want to make sure that like when we're doing our first con this weekend. It's a small local one, but it's like if you're in the Kansas City area, it's free state con. A good friend of mine, Craig, puts it on, and it's a wonderful show that he puts on every year. And he invited me and Max to be guests, and I'm like, this is great, you know. And then we can do a couple small ones and kind of work up to that C2E2 venue. But a lot of it was making sure we had the right materials, making sure that the name's already out there and going, you know, that way, we don't want to just be up there and like Max said, here we have this one comic. I mean, and don't get me wrong, there's guys out there that do it and I love them and I go get their books and we try to support them. But just for our business plan, we didn't want to do it that way.
Yeah. I mean, Atrocity Press wasn't a vanity publisher. It was meant to be a publisher. That's like, with the Neo Tokyo, that was a book that I didn't write. Johnnie didn't write it. It was written by Josh Hadley.
Yep.
So it was the first time that we published something that wasn't written by someone interior to Atrocity Press. And we'll do it again eventually, but
maybe
we've got a lot of. We will.
No, we will. We will. I know.
We just got a lot of stories that we want to tell ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's like, do I want to put the money towards my own story or do I want to put the money towards someone else's story? And it's like, I think I'll buy my own story.
Well, and that says a lot though. And I'm going to kind of sideways this here because there's a lot of writers out there and there's all these, I mean, I own a comic shop. Everybody and their brothers writing a comic book. Don't get me wrong. The thing that really appealed, when me and Max were talking about stuff is, he and I are both 2 of those guys. If we say we're going to do something, we're going to do it. He said he was going to start Atrocity Press. He did. I said I was going to open up a comic shop. I did. But there's so many guys out there that are like, hey, I'm a comic writer. I want to write a comic. Okay, that's great. Do you have the money? Do you? Well, some of them have the script, but it's like, but do you have the money for the artists and the lettering and the colorists and the inkers? And a lot of them are like, well, no. Well, you need that. I mean, it's great to say that you can write a book, but there's also that financial commitment that a lot of people, miss because,
It goes even further. It's also the idea, what's your business plan? What's your plan for you? What's your plan for media? What's your plan for actually being a decent person in this industry? You know what
that's
is,
right.
I say it and it's somewhat funny. What is your relationships with comic shops? What is your relationships with people in all of these groups on Facebook and on Twitter and on Instagram? And I think that people have no idea what that actually looks like. And the reason why I have an idea of it is because I'm in this space as a podcaster. And while not writing a book, I've had to foster and build relationships. And I think,
I mean, networking is networking.
Yeah.
and I think it's a big issue. And I think a lot of people, and look, I mean, how many people in the indie comic industry come in and know how to make money doing this? You have an IP, and there's a million ways how to make an IP worth money and actually make you money. Yet I feel like everybody, people either don't know how to do it, they don't think, they're not creative on the business side, or they're lazy. It's one of those three things. And the people who do figure it out, they figured it out and they got down and dirty. And I'm not saying you got to figure it out in the first book, but you got to come in.
But you've got to have an idea.
Yeah.
You've got to have a concept to start with. I mean, but it's always different too. Like business plans vary from person to person. Like Sam Quinton from 47 Furious Tales, the way he does his printing and his business is completely different from the way me and Johnnie do ours. I mean, but we both use crowdfunding as a basically our main source of income on these projects, or at least to get them printed. And then after that, it's different post stuff, because Sam sells his books to stores and we sell our books directly to the consumer through the website and different things like that.
Now we are starting to branch out. That's kind of what I'm starting to do now, is I'm starting to reach out to different comic shops. But see, that's like Max said, I was a big curveball. Max was going to do Mary Machine Gun and some other titles, and he was great. We were talking, and he's like, "Hey, you want to edit this book for me?" I'm like, "Sure." I think it was Mary Machine Gun 2.
Yeah.
And I gave him some notes, gave him some feedback, and he's like, "Hey, you got kind of ahead about this." And I'm like, "Yeah." And he gets like, "Do you want to sit down and maybe give me some ideas and co-write a book?" And that was Mary Machine Gun 3. And then after that, he's like, "Hey, do you want to maybe do this human? You got some ideas?" I go, "Human Hunters." And this is like where I go about the financial part. I got this idea for this comic I've been bouncing around for a while. And he's like, "Well, I'd like to do it." He goes, "But I'm not going to pay for it." He goes, he's like, "We can collaborate and we'll both write it." And he goes, "But you got to have some fundage." And I'm like, "All right, how much do I got to write a check for?" And I said, and I did that, and then he's like, "Hey, this is really going good. We were finishing each other's sentences," like he said. And I got to tell you, it's funny because me and Max probably only for the last year and a half really gotten close. But personally, I feel like I've known Max my whole life now. He's like my brother. Yeah. I love the guy to death. I would give this guy my right arm. I would. That's just how I feel about him. He's like my brother now. And because we've clicked so quickly. And
that's his jerking arm.
Yeah, there you go. But I mean, it was one of those things to me. He comes up to me and he goes, "I want you to buy in." And I'm thinking 10, 20%. And he's like, "No, I want you to dig at 50 and we're going to share this," which right there shows you what kind of, guy Max is. This is his baby. This is his child. And he's like, "I'm going to share half of it with you." So number one, I feel really touched that he trusts me. Number two, it's a big responsibility because I don't want to F it up, because it's like, hey, this is his baby, honor amongst thieves. I got to make sure we do well with this. and it makes us both better. And then so all of a sudden his business plan changed. He's brought on a partner. He's got strengths. I got strengths and weaknesses, but together now we can do more stuff than Max did alone.
Captain Planet.
Yeah. Besides just fulfilling in one day.
Yep.
I think that's our superpower. For our last comic, we fulfilled it all in one day, packed everything up. It was awesome.
It's interesting, all of this. And
I know we're giving you a lot of info.
I don't have a business partner, and this is my baby, and I don't know if I'm willing to give this up, but there are other things in my life that are in the works with partners, and it's very interesting when you have a partner, and especially when somebody brings something else to the table. But I've worked with collaborators on things, and it's very helpful. And again, like I've hired an editor for a bunch of episodes, and it's an unbelievable, helpful thing. Sometimes you just have another pair of eyes on it, but it's fascinating. We could have like a whole hour discussion just on that. And
Oh yeah, probably
relationships. I think this is another thing that lacks in the comic community right now is people even understanding how to find business partners and engage with them and who to trust and how to even set up trust and things of that nature. Because having a writing partner and having a business partner are two different things. And if they're the same, that's even better. But sometimes you don't need your writer partner doesn't need to be a business partner.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. I mean, for us, it works well. And so we even go a step further. We have a group of friends of ours that we springboard off, and they're comic writers or artists, and and that helps too. It's something like it's really good to kind of have that family, because when you look at it as what can we do to help each other versus what do we do to be better than this other person. It's like you don't have to be better than the other comic. You guys can work together. Sam, great friend. We love supporting his Kickstarter. There's God, we can name them all, Max. I mean, all the guys, but it's like
Sam and Larry and Pete and Phil.
Yeah.
Warren.
But
all sorts of people.
And that's the thing, we want to support them because in the comic industry, and I'm going to be that guy, that's always half full, because I'd rather be promoting other people and having them promote us, returning the favor, than knocking somebody down to try to get those brownie points to get you to buy my book. That's just not, that's just not.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why we don't have a lot of people that don't like us. I mean, for the stuff that we publish, you figure people would have a problem with it, but really, like, we haven't had any
knock on
people,
wood, dude.
Yeah, we haven't had any
We've been real lucky.
Any backlash from it, but I mean, then again, we don't draw super skinny girls. All our girls are proportionate, so people can't.
Well, kind of human hunters does got to get the line.
Yeah,
but I'm a big Scott Campbell fan. I mean, his girls all need sandwiches. But,
yeah, that's for sure.
But the thing is we don't try to say, we don't try to hide by anything. We own it. This is what we like. This is what we want.
I like sexy women and upskirt stuff. So we're having lots of that happening.
It's interesting, and it's a very, very whole big conversation, and this is what my comic book hangouts are for.
Right.
This is the whole reason why I run that entire show, is to have these open discussions, because I think it is a fascinating topic. But again, I run my show the way I run my show, and nobody's gonna ever tell me how to run my show.
Sure.
I have on my show, it's who I want to have on, and the style works, and it is what it is, and I'll deal with every consequence, supposedly. And if people love me or hate me, well, that's on them. I can't control how somebody feels. You're entitled to your feelings, whether they're factual or not. Well, that's up for debate. But I digress.
Well, we like you. How's that? We like you. You got 2 votes right here.
You got
I got to do a shout out here. Larry's sitting here saying Johnny's like a brother to me. Yeah, we love you too, Larry.
Who's Johnny Reed?
So I do want to show the rewards, because there's a bunch of stuff, and I can only show half of them technically.
Right.
I don't want to get in trouble. But this is cover A. So that's cover A, and your cover A is how much?
It's $15. All of our covers are $15, except for the nude covers, which are $50. And the reason why they're $50 is because they all come with like 4 prints.
And then this is cover B.
Plus, we also had it at $50 because we know children can't afford that price for them.
Yeah. Mariah Benez is cover B. That's Ed Benez's sister. Elsie Freitas. That's doing Rachel as a cover there. That was one of my favorite covers.
That's a good one.
And there's this one.
And that's Mateus Duarte. He's the artist for Human Hunters.
That's my boy. Give him a shout. I got to protect him.
And then there's this one right here.
And that's by Fern Cord, the artist for Mary Machine Gun. And that's all 4 of the girls there.
And one thing to say about him real quick, he is also our art director. Mm-hmm. We couldn't do this without him. I mean, really, the guy's a machine.
Yeah.
And he really helps coordinate all these books for us. I mean, yeah, we can just sit there and say, yeah, he does Mary Machine Gun, but he does so much more than that.
Yeah, he gets everything squared away. He makes sure everybody's down there is on track and they're doing the right stuff and they're on schedule and everything. So
and then
he makes sure I pay them.
Yeah.
That's Steph Wilson. That's
is that?
Yeah.
I didn't know by the style. It kind of confused me.
Nope, that's Steph Wilson.
Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this one, because obviously one of the things about Steph Wilson is that Steph Wilson is one of those artists that has a big following, and people might not know your book, but they know who Steph Wilson is. It's very similar to Paul Green. It's very similar to Jake Campbell. Clayton Crane is another one. And so what is that like? Because this is the business acumen, I feel, of Kickstarter, where somebody might not know this book. And they might be like, hey, what is Ninja Bimbos?
Yeah,
there's. But they don't know who Steve Wilson is. And then they come in and then they get indoctrinated, which sometimes is necessary because it's just like, I guess, a comfort level, for lack of a better word.
Yeah. I mean, I can guarantee you that there are people that have bought this book that are just Steph Wilson fans. And they may not even open the book, which would kind of suck, but they might not open it up. But they might, and they might have take a good read through it and be like, man, this is great. And then we've got another customer that will come back and buy Ninja Bimbos versus Zombies from Deep Space 3. Maybe they'll buy Mary Machine Gun 4. Maybe they'll buy Human Hunters 2, because they'll be like, boy, Atrocity Press puts out good stuff. I'm going to continue to read Atrocity Press material, not just Ninja Bimbos, but all of our stuff that we're going to be putting out.
Isn't it also the fact that when you then have a background Kickstarter and you launch another project, you technically can update it, or automatically updates them on something else? And so even if they're not interested, they're still going to get that update. Whether they open up that update or not, it's just another marketing thing. And that has to, I don't know what that is worth per marketing value or whatnot.
Kickstarter's pretty good about promoting the stuff on their site. They try really hard to make sure you get funded, because they don't get money unless you get funded.
Well, I just meant in the update itself.
Oh no,
it gets updated. It's like, I'm like, cool. If I back A and then the next time they launch a project, that is invaluable. And I think that a lot of people don't even realize how valuable that is, because it's almost like an email list update that automatically happens. And so whenever somebody backs it, even though it might not be Ninja Bimbos, and you're doing Mary Machine Gun 4, they're going to be notified that you got another thing out.
It says, back another project by Max DeVill.
And so I think that that's something that is very helpful, especially when you do have cover artists. And for anybody who's listening and this is their first Kickstarter, you should be thinking long term. This is almost like Survivor and managing a jury. Yes. I just went to Survivor, everybody. I just went to Survivor. I want to let everybody know that's where we went. But I digress right there. And then obviously you got the nude covers that are nude. I am not going to show them. The last time I showed the cover, I got kicked off YouTube for a week, which was not fun. Given that is my business. But and then there's some other stuff too, where there's obviously I think there's a physical catch up of cover A for issues 1 and 2. There's digitals of issues 1 and 2. There's a whole package here, whether it's an add-on or it's a tier, I forget, but of everything. And then the interesting thing that I think is interesting is your digital side, where you have a nude digital.
Yeah, we have. It was something that people have requested. I mean, it wasn't anything that we had done up until the last issue of Mary Machine Gun 3 was the first time we did a nude digital. But people have requested it, so we put it out there, and I give them the nude digital, plus I give them the digital prints, because they're getting everything digitally. They might as well get everything digitally that you would have got if you would have backed it physically.
Yes. Yeah, so what is that like, even to throw that up? Because you're not the first person who's done this, and I find it fascinating because anytime you can take something and people find value in something and what people want to spend their money on, I'm all for it, and people like this type of stuff. And so what is this like to even experiment? Because I think that's what Kickstarter really is throw up a reward if people want it and then a bunch of people like it. It's a good experiment. And then if it doesn't work well, you find something that does work, right?
Yeah. We've tried a few things that were not very successful in campaigns, where they didn't sell very well or whatnot. And then we've done other things that have sold really, really well. So it really is an experiment, because you never know what the customers are really going to gravitate to and really bite on unless you try some stuff.
Well, and it's never going to be constant. Let's face it. I mean, you get a hot item, it's going to be hot, but only for so long until it's replaced for another new hot. So you got to kind of try to find that niche. What's the big, for me, one of my other hats I wear is I work for a charity, and we sell a lot of D&D stuff. And like the big thing right now is hollow dice. 3 years ago, nobody was really buying a lot of hollow dice. Now everybody's buying hollow dice. And that's the same thing with these Kickstarters. You got to find that niche. What's really going? Like you said, metal. There's a lot of people who like some metal cards, but is that only one or two people? Or is there going to be a rush where there's that's the new thing? Everybody wants that.
Yeah, and then also exclusivity is big, and my bet is exclusivity is only getting bigger. It's only getting bigger. And limited runs on things are only going to get bigger. They're not
absolutely.
And it's a value proposition, and it's also exclusive clubs. When there's a 25 limited run book on something, that's just it. It's only 25 people have it, so it's kind of cool in that regard. And then there's
but you have to be careful, because Motley Crue also said they were going to have their last concert. So you never know when that stuff's going to pop back up again.
Yeah, Kiss has been.
It's true.
Because a lot of times I'll see that, we're going to do 25 runs, but then they'll put it out again, but it's like a different shade of color. And I'm like, that's almost cheating.
That's like taking a mulligan, and it's just terrible. I despise when that happens.
Right.
But also I understand that if you're doing a gold and then a red and then you black and white it, it's whatever.
No, granted. I mean, yeah, I'm not.
And look, everybody wants to do that, and I get why, because it's money, and money dictates everything. But I digress. We could definitely go and harpoon things like Tommy Lee, but that's not the point here.
No.
Hey, just ask Pam, right? Just ask Pam. Max got the joke right there. Max really got the joke. So, but I digress. And so obviously, and then there's some stretch goals that are cool. I don't know, did you reach a stretch goal yet, or?
No, we haven't read them, but I mean, we've reached $4,000, so we've reached all of the nude prints will be released, because those are all $1,000 first, 1, 2, 3, 4, but also 3 and 4 released trading card number 1 and number 2. So we got the Asian trading card, and let's see what the second one is. Let me scroll down. Asian's card, and then Donna was trading card number 2. And the next card we're working on is Leah's card.
Yeah.
So once we hit 5,000, we'll be on Leah's card.
And then there's just a bunch of stuff going on. And then I'm going to ask the question, are you going to be doing a second chance campaign on Indiegogo, or is that still up in the air?
Probably not. Indiegogo hasn't been that kind to us. Yeah. So we're kind of like, why do I mean, if it's like,
right? I mean,
yeah.
I'm asking so that for those who are watching and are fans, it might be on Indiegogo. It's probably going to be there. So if you want,
I can almost guarantee it's not going to be there.
because and it's not just us. I mean, we've got a lot of different people that we network with, and a lot of them are they're struggling with Indiegogo right now.
It's a tricky platform. I mean, look at Tom with Bad Kitty on Indiegogo.
Yeah.
It's a rough one. It's a rough one.
Yeah, I mean that Bad Kitty could have been doing $20,000-$30,000 on Kickstarter, but it's only doing $7 on Indiegogo. I mean, come on, that book needs to be doing more than $7.
Honest, my view on Bad Kitty is that I think Bad Kitty could have done 25,000 very easily on Kickstarter. I don't know about 30 because it's a new property, but it's getting destroyed on Indiegogo. I mean, there's no question about that. That's the fact, and it's rough, and it would have done double, if not triple, that on Kickstarter with ease.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't understand. I don't know if it's like just how Indiegogo promotes their projects to their customers or what, because I mean, when you're doing a Kickstarter and you can go in and look at your backer report or whatever, it tells you, like, your dashboard tells you where all your backers have come from, right? And like 43 of our backers for Ninja Bimbo's #2 have come from the email blasts from Kickstarter. So, and then 18 of them says direct traffic, no refer information. And then 9 of them was from Comic Books Discover. 6 was from recommendations. 5 was from Facebook. So it shows you basically who's going and where it's all coming from. And a lot of it comes from Kickstarter. And I think that a lot of the Kickstarter stuff, that it comes from Kickstarter because other projects will bring people to the platform of Kickstarter, and then at the very bottom of that, when they scroll through the project, it shows the pre-project at the bottom. Those are they're very, very good at making those relevant to what you were looking at. So,
yeah, their algorithm's pretty. I do appreciate it. It's pretty close.
Yeah, I mean, because I don't know how if they just go through the text on the Kickstarter and use some AI to create some sort of tagging system for it or what, or if they have someone that goes through and physically does it, manual creating tags to do it. But their system is really good.
Yeah, kudos to them.
Yeah, it's interesting. And look, I mean, I got into a discussion with somebody, and I said, look, with Indiegogo, I just don't feel comfortable on the platform. I just don't. And so if your project is on Indiegogo and then it's on Kickstarter, I'm probably going to back it on Kickstarter because I just don't feel comfortable with Indiegogo's platform. It confuses me. It's not as, I guess, comforting for me. And it's kind of like if you don't feel comfortable walking in a store. And that's how and there are other people who are like me. And so you could put the exact same campaign on both of them, and I will go to the Kickstarter because I'm just more comfortable with Kickstarter. But
it's like with Larry. He did a $30,000 campaign for his Niobe book, and he's got a Kickstarter Indiegogo going right now, and I think he's got like 3 backers. What's that all about? I mean, he did $30,000 and then can't get more than 3 backers on Indiegogo? Come on now.
Yeah, it's an issue, and it's not just him. It's a lot of people.
No, it's everybody that I know of that's going over to Indiegogo. I don't know anyone that's successful over there.
I mean, I'll tell you who's successful. Mandy Summers was successful. My friend who does Shotgun Samurai was successful over there.
Oh yeah, I mean, there are people that are successful, but I don't know anyone personally.
I only know one person who did over 10,000 on Indiegogo. I only know one person, and the book, it sold itself. And when you have a book called Shotgun Samurai and it's a manga of a guy who's a samurai who carries a shotgun instead of a sword, the book lends itself. It's an awesome book. And so, but I digress. But neither here nor there. That addresses my question that I was asked about what the future of crowdfunding is.
Yep.
But I digress. Obviously, though, I am curious where you see, the entire industry going. To further dive into that, before I give you guys a chance to promote yourself and let Johnny get back to work.
Oh, this is my day off. I'm good.
Where do we see in crowdfunding or the comic book industry?
Just the future of comics in general. I'm curious about, because there's a lot of stuff that's up in the air about it right now. I feel like we're kind of, I don't want to say we're at a fork, but we're at a very weird time in comics.
It's definitely a crossroads, because there's a few different ways things could go. I mean, it could fall back into the standard distribution model where you would like they had like in the 80s and the 90s, because there's more than just Diamond now. There's Lunar, and there's a couple other, like there's
Random House, Lunar,
and there may be more as time goes along to create more publishers. So that'll open up a bunch of different avenues of approach for other people to have their books getting placed into comic book stores. Now, as Johnny says, he doesn't like it because as a retailer, he would much rather just be buying it from one place and not have to pay shipping 6 different times.
Well, not only that, it's like every company. It's like with Diamonds, you had a monthly limit. Hey, you had to order this much every month. Well, then now Diamond has their amount. Oh, now Lunar has their amount. Now Random House has their amount. So instead of saying, oh, I got to have $600 minimum orders for the month, you're now up to 1,000 minimum order as a retailer.
Yeah, that's true.
Which, if you're a big store, you're fine. But but you may have you may just have one customer that wants a few of these titles by this company. So it makes it a lot harder sometimes as well.
Yep. But the comic book, I mean, it could go that way, or it could go harder. It could lean harder on crowdfunding and direct to customer sales, which is the way I think things are going to be going. That's the way it seems to be headed.
I think all business is heading that way anyway. I mean, honestly, anytime I can cut out the middleman and somebody could just do business with me directly, it's so much easier and it's so much more efficient. And I mean, right now I'm heavily dependent on eBay in my business, but if I can get to the stage where I could cut out eBay and it's only going to cost me 3%, but I get the same traffic, and that's the problem I'm trying to figure out how to solve it, even if it's solvable in my world. Because then I can actually lower my prices and I could be more competitive and make just the same amount of money. And so, I don't like to deal with middlemen because they suck and it just is inefficient. And so I think that we're going to direct consumer anyway. And I wish DC and Marvel would do that, to be very honest. I mean, one of the things that Zenescope does is that they sell directly to their customers every single month live.
The only problem you have with that, though, is then you take that risk of losing your brick and mortar stores.
So what Zenescope sells, though, is they sell the convention exclusives.
No, granted, but I'm just saying. But you got to remember, once you start that boulder, that snowball, at what point do they say, you know what, we don't need comic shops anymore, just order them online and you can get them direct through us.
That is true. And I am speaking to you who owns a comic shop, so you're a little biased, just a tad bit, right?
Well, I'm a little biased, but by the same token, I mean, there is that point of the experience, because growing up, going to a comic shop, seeing the toys, seeing the act, to me, that's kind of the fun of it. I mean, I know a lot of people that, order their stuff online. I mean,
let me ask you a question, though. I'm actually curious about your experience, because to me, when I go to a comic store, I don't care about the new stuff. I like to go through the backlogs because that, to me, is a fun experience. And so to me, that's my entire thing when I go to a comic shop, is I don't really care about what came out this week. I want to go and see what came out like 15 years ago. and like go through the $1 or $5 bin, or go through like they just pulled in like a cool variant that came in that they bought off of somebody's collection. I'm not interested in the new Batman whatever 1015 or whatever it is, because that can be found anywhere. I want to go through, because to me it's like hunting in the wild. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No,
Well, no, it does. I mean, but see, that's you're one type of customer, because I have several customers that are like that. They come in, they want to look at my back issues, they want to know what the prices are, they want to see the older figures, some of the older gaming stuff. But I have just as many that they want that weekly pull list. I got a deal like Saturday mornings where I have a big 11-foot like great almost theater screen in the back of my shop, and I have theater seating back there. And like every Saturday morning, I put on Saturday morning cartoons, Spider-Man's Amazing Friends, X-Men, and then we got guys that come in and they talk about the comics that they got that week. So I mean, it's the point of having both, so you can actually have both clientele.
Fair enough. I mean, I just love just hunting in the wild. To me, it's always a fun time. And
I do for old stuff. Like, I'm a big action figure guy. I mean, I have probably thousands of action figures. It's ridiculous how many I have. But I've been collecting them forever.
You got a few.
Stupid. I have a few. Like, when people like, do you collect Marvel Legends? I'm like, I have practically everyone opened and in the box, because I'm one of those two buyers, for some of them. I collect, some of the hot toys. And it's like, I like going to those shops and finding some of those older figures. Now granted, I just as well, I do like trying to find some of the newer ones, because I'm kind of getting tired of like the Targets and the vintage stock prices. They've gotten pretty proud of their stuff. So sometimes it's a lot better to go to a mom and pop that sometimes they can have them cheaper. Unfortunately, it's hard to. Unfortunately, sometimes you can't beat that Walmart machine. I mean, they're filling millions of stores. Yeah, so it's like they're getting a cut rate that nobody else ever is going to get.
That is true. I completely get it, and
But by the same token, I go out and I support Kickstarters. I think something I even do in my shop is I have a section in my shop just for Kickstarters.
Mm-hmm.
Because if there's a Kickstarter I like, I'll like freaking Sam. I'm like, hey, I like your titles. I don't want to just buy one for me. Set me up a retail tier. I want them in my shop. I want people there's a lot of people out there that don't trust Kickstarters, but they'll trust a retail store. So I'm trying to do that as well, where I can support Kickstarters right here. People can come in and get them. And that way it spreads the word out too.
It's tricky with Kickstarter, because I've been burned on something when somebody has a book that's supposed to come out in May, and then they're only 40% done with it, and I'm not going to get that book for another, year and a half because they don't have enough funding. It's like it makes me stop and say, do I really want to support another Kickstarter? And it's not that the person who's running the next one is not going to fulfill, but it only takes one or two bad apples for me to say, let me take a month off. And I don't think I could be blamed for that, because it's kind of like, you don't need to be burned a bunch of times.
Granted. And that's once again going back to, that's like the me and Max's worth sphere. What happens if one of our artists, sprains his hand, or something happens and they have to take a month off? That's why
God forbid something even worse happens. I mean, like with Larry, the guy had a stroke. I mean, I had a stroke.
You had a stroke even. I mean, so that's why, we've said we will not put anything on Kickstarter unless it's completed. And when we've dropped that out there, that's the last thing you read. You scroll down on our Kickstarter right now, it'll say this book is 100% done, completed.
The only thing we kickstart, we crowdfund the cost to print and ship it to people.
Yep.
And hopefully we'll make more money, that we can make our money back on the money that we cost or spent to make the book. I hope.
Yeah. It'd be great to make money at this, but I got to tell you, but probably me and Max are probably in agreement. As long as we can keep writing every month and not have to put money out of our pocket, I would be fine with it.
Yep.
I mean, granted, we all want to make money at what we're doing. It's a business, but
there's a concept that you have one seed round, and then you hope that it's self-sufficient, so you don't need another seed round.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It is the way
Exactly.
I think Kickstarter should work. If I ever do something on Kickstarter, that's the goal. Where
When you do revolving Kickstarters like this, yes, that's definitely the goal. I mean, if you're gonna just do like a huge project like solar freaking roadways, then you just want someone to buy into your stupid idea that doesn't work and spend millions of dollars on it.
it was one time, Max. It was one time.
Dude, you do?
Let's do this.
I had to do it because they came with that chamois for my car.
Well, not that I don't have a job. Again, clearly, once they see this, I'll probably get a raise. Is what's going to happen. But anyhow, all jokes aside, I do want to give both of you a chance to promote, obviously, this book, Ninja Bimbos, for Zombies from Deep Space, as well as Atrocity Press, and Johnnie, what's your store? And I don't know who wants to go first in promoting what they got. Where you guys we found all that fun stuff, anything that's relevant, I guess, or not relevant, so be it.
Ninja Bimbos versus Zombies from Deep Space, issue number 2 is currently on Kickstarter. If you like zombie movies, B-flicks, hot women, and gore, this is for you. This is definitely for you. Because
and a mix of comedy and drama. I mean, it's got a good balance. It's got a good mix.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I said.
I'm biased, but
it's a B movie.
Yeah,
some of the stuff that's funny may not be intentionally be funny, but it just is. It is. But yeah, if you like all that type of stuff, you're definitely going to want to jump in on this one because it's got it all. I mean, and the art is just fantastic. It's not just like half-assed drawn shit. It's really high quality, professionally drawn and colored art. It's 100% balls to the wall, super fantastic, and you're going to love it.
And just one thing to say to that, to comment, we are very particular about our art because I will tell you, it's got a 3-step approval process. Because our art director has to approve it, Max has to approve it, and I have to approve it. I mean, and that's the same with our writing. Once we're done with the script, we step away from it for like a month, and then we go back again, and then we go back again, and then we have certain people we trust to proofread it because we want it to be the best product there is.
Yep.
So, I mean, I can't tell you how many times we're like, hey, can you just add a little thing to the bagound? Or, hey, you know what? I just noticed she was holding her sword in the wrong hand. Because we're very conscious of when people are giving me their $15, we want them to receive the best thing they can get and the best experience in a comic book.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, we want them to have a good experience. That way they want to come back and have another good experience.
Yes.
We want to provide them with that good experience.
Yep. And I guess the next thing to promote is next month. We do have Human Hunters Dose coming out. That's going to be coming out in the month of October. We're going to have all the sexy creatures of the night. And it's going to be fun because it's going to have a lot of Halloween covers, and we're going to bank on that because, Monsters of Halloween goes hand in hand. Following that will be our Mary Machine Gun issue 4. Mm-hmm. After Mary Machine Gun 4, we will be doing Ninja Bimbos 3. That'll be the first of the year. Then we're going to be doing Human Hunters right after it with Human Hunters 3. So you will not have to wait another year for any of these books.
Oh, no. We got
starting next year. It's just going to be one right after the other.
The machine is firing on all cylinders now.
So we're excited. I mean, and I know we've said it a few times, but just for us to get to this point, it excites us. Because we know that's what people want. We know what the fandom, they want to be able to, like you said, every month, I want a new book from Atrocity Press. I don't want to wait 6 months. Well, we're finally at that point. It took us a bit to get here, and but we're there, and we're happy about it.
All right. Well, my dog is crying at me, so I'm going to have to take off and take him outside.
Andrew, real quick here, I just want to say thank you so much. It's a pleasure for you having us on here, and we appreciate all your support and all the time you put in for this podcast. We know you do a lot of hard work, and we need people like you to do it for us, and we appreciate you being a vehicle for that.
Hell yeah. That's all shit.
Well, I'm just going to say this, and I'm just going to continue to say you have to support indie. And if you don't support indie, these books don't get made.
Hold on.
And, well, you got to open up your wallet and you got to pledge on Kickstarter. But if money's tight, and I've been saying it over and over again, the next best thing that you can do is tweet about it, mention it on Facebook, mention it in your Instagram stories.
Oh, yeah. Share it.
About all that stuff, because that just goes just as far as money does in that regard.
Spread the word.
As far as I'm concerned, really quickly, obviously, all my social media is Pop Anime Comics. You can follow me there for any updates about what I'm doing on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I got a comic book investing class coming out October 5th. That may or may not be a big day in comics. Just saying, a big event's happening on the East Coast that day. I will not be there because they rejected me, which I'm licking my wounds about, but that's okay. And so you can check me out there. And on that note, everybody, I believe that is a wrap.
Farewell and goodbye.